Hello subs and YouTubers. I'm back for a new video. So we're only a few weeks from the 2017 Christmas special, and once the credits roll, it will be the last of the Stephen Moffat era for Doctor Who, as well as Peter Capaldi's finale as the Doctor. After that, Doctor Who now stands at a pivotal fork in the road in its history. Chris Chibnall, who is taking over as showrunner after Moffat, will be tasked with not only successfully selling the series' first female Doctor, but will also have to save the series from its downward spiral in the ratings experienced during the Moffat era. Indeed, Doctor Who stands on a precipice. So where do we go from here? What can Chibnall do to save Doctor Who while simultaneously convincing over 60% of its existing audience that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor will be the same character we've watched for over 54 years? Well, that's what I want to discuss in this video. I basically see two possible approaches to Series 11. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to call them the Macfarlane Method and the Abrams Method. First, let me define the two methods. The Macfarlane Method is named after Seth MacFarlane for his work on the new sci-fi series The Orville, which was clearly inspired by the original formula of Star Trek. The Orville, while not part of official Star Trek canon, looks and feels like traditional Star Trek. It doesn't attempt to appeal to mass audiences, but rather targets sci-fi fans specifically. The Abrams Method is named after Abrams' flavor of Star Trek, which I associate with the new Star Trek Discovery series, even though Abrams had no role in its production. But it's clear from its visuals, presentation, story, etc. that it's attempting to adhere to that formula. The Abrams Method tosses out the tried and true formula of the original and elects to go in a completely new direction with no regard for how it may affect the fan base. Okay, so now let's get down to business. Let's start with the Abrams Method, as I feel this is likely the direction Chibnall is going. If Chibnall chooses this approach, we can expect Series 11 to depart even further from traditional Doctor Who than the RTD era or the Moffat era. The main problem in this scenario is that the series would become so unrecognizable to its massive existing fan base that viewership could suffer a heavy loss, something that it desperately doesn't need right now and would be counterproductive to Chibnall's task. This might usher Doctor Who in front of a new audience, but at what point do we admit that the series simply isn't aimed at sci-fi fans anymore? The program will likely focus heavily on the characters themselves rather than the adventures they experience, and how those experiences affect them mentally, emotionally, personally, etc. Likewise, episodes will be interspersed with over-the-top action sequences shot in shaky cam with lens flares, rolling camera angles, and the pacing will be breakneck speed. In short, the Doctor Who equivalent to Star Trek Discovery. From where I'm standing, this will certainly spell the end for Doctor Who. The ratings will plummet further due to viewer displeasure, and with its audience left only with a minority, Chibnall will then have to deal with either casting another female as the 14th Doctor and letting the decline run its course, or casting a male to replace Whittaker, which would alienate the only audience he has left. For the record, this is why I have opposed a female Doctor from the start, because to me it pushes the series into a no-win scenario. So what about the Macfarlane Method? Under this approach, Chibnall would need to make drastic changes to the series in terms of appearance, presentation, and formula. Returning Doctor Who to a formula found during its golden age, let's be generous and say Troughton through Tom Baker, would appeal to Doctor Who's long-existing fan base, as well as many of the newcomers. In this scenario, the series is appealing to 70 to 80% of its target audience, which would bode well for ratings. Moreover, newcomers that join under this approach would be more inclined to relate to the original series, since there wouldn't be the stark contrast between the two. The Doctor's character would need to be written more as a genius, a scientist with a grasp of both physics and quantum mechanics far beyond anyone else in the story, barring other Time Lords, of course. I see no reason for why this shouldn't be done either way, as Chibnall clearly is wanting to make a statement about female equality, so this one should be easy. Whittaker's Doctor should be at all times the smartest person in the room. Additionally, the companions would not need to be all Earth-based, or even from present-day Earth. This allows more contrast as well as depth to the companions, as well as adding dynamics to their characters with respect to the Doctor. In this department, Doctor Who desperately needs more variety since 2005. The stories can comment on current political issues, but only using the utmost subtlety. The social commentary being relayed should not be at the expense of the story itself. Stories should explore new ideas like Flatline did. In terms of presentation, ditch the pre-title sequences altogether. If people are sitting down to watch Doctor Who, they don't need to be teased about the story before seeing the opening titles. Open with just a title sequence, then get to business. Speaking of the title sequence, if Whittaker's face doesn't prominently feature in it, you're doing it wrong. Return to serial format using umbrella titles with a Part 1, Part 2 system. Alternatively, episode can be used. Ditch the next time trailers. Kinda defeats the point of the cliffhanger, doesn't it? More emphasis on stories, less emphasis on the characters, particularly the Doctor. The nostalgia factor should come from how you're presenting it, not by recycling every classic story villain under the sun. The Daleks are overused as well as the Cybermen, but if you must have these iconic villains, set about restoring the respect they commanded during the original series. Enough of the emotional porn. If a companion is ready to leave, have the characters say their goodbyes and let's move on. Lastly, the incidental music should be just that, incidental. The original series used music very sparsely, and so should Series 11. Under these guidelines, Doctor Who would return to the formula it was known for, which I feel would go a long way towards damage control. Granted, some fans just won't accept a female Doctor, and given how mistreated they feel by the BBC in response to their complaints, I doubt you'll ever win them back. They're gone for good. But all is not lost, Mr. Chibnall. You have the power to bridge the gulf that has divided a fan base and once again unite them together in front of their televisions in support of Doctor Who. Macfarlane saw an opportunity with Orville and took it. The series has an audience score of 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, nearly double that of Discovery. Endeavor to not only appeal to new young sci-fi fans, but to appeal to that loyal fan base that has stuck around for 54 years, even when it was off the air. So that's my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to my channel.